Alright, lesson 26 in the book. What we've done in the past couple of drawings is do scaling. We've drawn objects to a different scale than what we've been doing as far as 1-to-1. The last two drawings you did was putting two different objects on one drawing that are set at two different scales. Okay? And basically what you've done is I guess you'd say is the harder way around creating multiple objects on one drawing at two different scales. What we're fixing to get today is what we call paper space. Okay? We're going to get into paper space. As you can see down here at the bottom, they have three tabs. It says Model, Layout 1, Layout 2. These tabs can be created in 20 tabs if we need it. Okay? What that is, Model, the Model tab is what you have been drawing in this whole time. Okay? Model is where you've drawn your title block, your objects, you've done your text, dimensions, everything. What you're fixing to realize is we're going to start using the layout tabs, because what it's going to allow you to do is you will still draw your objects in model space. Okay? Now dimensioning, you will have a little bit more of an option of where to put it, but your objects itself you'll be drawing in model space. Now, what's going to be different is your title block. Your title block now will not be put in model space. Okay? Now your title block is going to be placed on top of layout 1. So let's get through it and see how you set everything up and what everything is. Alright, as you can see, you have Model tab here. You're going to start using these little bitty icons down here on the bottom right on your status bar down there. As you can see, this right here tells you you're in Model. You see right here they have a scale. We won't deal with the scale this week, this week. It'll probably be next week or the week after. But I want to switch over real quick. I'm going to click on the Layout tab just so I can show you what you will be using. Looks totally different, doesn't it? Okay? As you can see, the Layout tab changes. Now, also, if you look down here, some of this has changed. What did this say just a minute ago? Down here. It said Model. Now you can see it saying Paper, which tells you that currently you are on paper space. Okay, you're currently on paper space. Now, let me kind of explain to you, because what is paper space and how does it work? What paper space requires you to do? Once you put a title block on top of paper space, you have to create what we call a viewport. Okay? You will have to create a viewport. Now, what is a viewport? Think of it like this. I just put a big old sheet of paper in front of what you've drawn. Okay? Think of it like that. You've drawn something on your board. I just took a big sheet of paper and I put it in front of it where you couldn't see it. Okay? Now I just gave you a box cutter, and you went in and cut you a hole in that paper. Once you cut a hole in that paper, what can you see now? I said you drew something on a board, but then I put a sheet of paper over where you couldn't see it. Now you cut a hole in that sheet of paper, so now what can I see? You can see your drawing. That's what a viewport is. Okay? Basically what Paperspace is you've drawn your drawing and model. You went over to Paperspace, you just laid a sheet of paper over the top of your drawing, and then you create a viewport to cut a hole through that piece of paper so that you can see your actual drawing that you've drawn. Now you're probably wondering, why would we want to do that? A couple reasons. One, it's a lot easier to do multiple drawings on one title block. And why would that be easy? What did y'all have to do on these last two drawings where you had two drawings on the title block? You had one that stayed the same, what you had to do to the other? Well, guess what? In Paperspace, you don't have to scale an object. Why? Because now, the viewport that you create is what you scale. And I'm going to show you in a second why it's so much easier. Because you don't have to figure any math or anything. All you do is click on the viewport, and there's going to be a scale button. You click on it, and it has all the scales you're looking for. And you just click on whatever scale you want it to be at. So you don't have to basically mess with your original object. It stays the same. All you start messing with is your viewport. Okay? Dimensioning is going to become a lot easier because now, same thing, you don't have to go into your dimensions and do the math to figure out what is the measurement scale, what is this, what is that. Okay? So let's get started. Alright, what I just explained to you basically is what they're doing on 26-5 in your book, talking about model layout tabs. Alright, let's start out with how to create a viewport. This is on 26-6. Now, viewports can only be created in Paperspace, which means you have to be on a layout tab to create a viewport. You can't do it inside ModelSpace. It has to be on the layout tab. Alright, so I am on the layout tab right now. Now, what do you notice about the screen we're looking at right now? What do you notice different than the screen we've been looking at? Well, one is the grid's only a one little bitty rectangle instead of the whole screen, right? Why? Because this right here is a viewport that when you create a new drawing or start a brand new drawing, in the layout tabs, a viewport is already there. Okay? So there's a viewport already there. But I'm going to delete this one just so I can show you how to create one. Now, I do want to talk to you about a couple of options you can turn off if you want. One of them is right here. You see how this screen is gray, this is white, we got these dash lines and all that. I personally don't like that being there. Okay? I don't like using it. To me, it just gets in the way of what I'm trying to do. So what I do is I go into the options menu, which is OP, enter, or OP spacebar. You go to display tab, and then right down here you see at the bottom left it says display layout and model tabs. Well, we want that to stay there. But then it says display printable area. The printable area that they're talking about is this hidden line right here. This dash line. That is what they're talking about, display printable area. I don't like to see it when I'm working, so I turn it off. And the other thing is display paper background. That is this stuff right here. And this stuff right here, the gray and the white. I personally don't like having that there, so I get rid of that also. So I just uncheck this display paper background. Once I'm done, I hit apply. Okay. And you notice it's all gone. Now, the white. For me, it hurts my eyes when I'm trying to draw. I don't like it. I can't see my colors very well. I like my background to be the black, just like model space. So, we can change that also. OP, enter. Under the same display tab, right here in the middle, they have color. Click on it. You see it says sheet layout, uniform background. Right now it's set to white. I'm going to change it to black. Once I change that, I hit apply and close. Okay, and look, now my screen is black. Okay, so however you feel. You want it white, you want it pink, you want it brown, you want it yellow, I don't care. That's up to you. I personally like it to be the same as the model space just because that's what I'm personally used to. Alright. Now, how do you create a viewport? If you come up to View, the View tab, you can see right here, okay, they did move. It used to be on the View tab. Now, it is on the Layout tab, or the Layout tab up at the top. Okay, it's Layout. And you see right here it says Layout Viewports. You see right here it says Rectangular. Now, if you click on the arrow underneath, you see it doesn't have to be a rectangular viewport. You can make it almost any shape that you want. But let's go ahead and do a rectangular first, and then we'll do something else. So we'll click rectangular. Now, what you do is you just start in one corner. Remember how you do when you go to do the plot? And you do the window for plot. And you start in one corner and come down to the opposite diagonal corner. You do the same thing with your viewport. Start in one corner, come down to the bottom opposite, and voila. Okay? There, you can see now, we can actually see part of model space. Because you can see the grid now, which we couldn't see before. Let's see if I can draw it. Just put something in there real quick. Alright. So that's a good example right there. Can you see the circle I just drew? No. But I want you to notice something about this line right here. It's white, it's thin, correct? It's solid. Notice down here, it says you're in paper right now, so you're in paper space, you're on the Layout tab. Watch what happens if I double click real fast inside this viewport. What happened? Well, the outline, the viewport got thicker. Your view cube popped up in the top right-hand corner. Your cursor popped up in the bottom left-hand corner. And look down here. What does it say now? It says model. Because once I double-clicked in the viewport, now what happens is I'm actually in model space again. Which means I can manipulate my drawing right now if I needed to. But what I want to do, I just want to find my drawing. What's a quick way to do a zoom off? Huh? that, double click on the wheel of your mouse. If I do that real quick, look what pops up. There's my circle. Now, I can come in here and do whatever I want. I can delete this. I can draw another rectangle, put a circle in the middle of it. You see, I'm working in model space right now, even though I'm on layout tab, so I'm on paper space, but right now I'm actually working in model. But if I want to get back on top of paper space, all I have to do is either double click out here away from your viewport, or come down here where you see it says model and click on it. Can I grab it now? You see, I just tried to grab my object. It won't grab it. Because now I am back on paper space. Alright? So, let's say we got our drawing completed. Now we want to set it to the scale that we want. Just like you've been doing, you've had a scale. You need to get the drawing to it. To put this at an actual scale, all you do is click on the viewport. You see how it turned? It's got the blue grips, so it means it's selected. And you can only do this on top of on paper, on layout one or on paper space. You click on it, you come down here to the right. You click on this scale box, and look what pops up. Here's your architectural skills. Here's some of your civil engineering skills, but you'll see once you get into your last semester, when you take civil drafting, you'll have to get into using some of those. But look, there's your almighty 1-to-1, your full-size scale. I think we could probably set this on 1-to-1 for right now. That is set. That drawing right there is literally 1-to-1. So if you print it on 8.5 by 11 and grab a ruler, a standard full-size ruler, you can actually measure that object out. Okay? What if we wanted, let's say you just finished drawing it, you just set it up, and now I come back and say, hey, I don't want that 1-to-1, I want it 1-to-2. What would you have to done on these other drawings if I'd have done that? There'd been a headache with it. Because now, if you didn't make a copy of that original little detail you did before you scaled it up, you got to scale your original back down and then try to scale it up to the new one. Well, if I change it like that on you now, all you got to do is come in here, click the viewport. Let's go to 2-to-1. There you are. You change your scale. So it's a lot easier now to set up scales on the drawing now, okay? What if I wanted the same object? Well, let's do this. Let's say we're going to put in a title block, okay? And we want those two objects. I got a rectangle and a circle, a triangle and a circle. We're going to put those both on the same page. You can do this one of two ways. You can either go ahead and create another viewport, so you can put the triangle in it, or the copy command that you use on everything else, you hit copy, select the viewport, right click, bring it over. Okay, you got a duplicate, right? Then all you have to do is double click in here, the one you want to move. And look, come down here, set the scale to whatever you want. Let's say we want it 1:1. There you are. You have now created two objects on one title block at two different scales. Okay, I didn't have to scale my object up or anything. All I'm doing is using the viewport scale. And you can manipulate this. If you want to bring it in closer, all you do is click on it and use the grip, just like you do with your dimensions and stuff like that. So you can make your viewport as big or as small as it needs to be. Alright? Now, this is one thing you need to get in your mind when you're working with viewport. Once you set a viewport, you want to lock it. Okay? And why you want to lock it is because this. You've got everything situated. You've got it all set exactly how you want it on your paper. Everything's perfect. And then all of a sudden you're in here working around and you accidentally somehow get in here and you mess the scale up. Well, now you got to go back through all that. I mean, it doesn't take long, but just to get it looking right on your viewport again, you got to go through, figure it out. So, watch this. Let's see. We're going to reset this back 2:1. Once you hit a scale like that and you set it, if you want to get your viewport right, pan. Use the pan button. And all it is click and hold down on your wheel and just pull it into place, let go, make sure your scale is still correct, and get out. Now, I can quickly lock these by selecting both the viewports. Coming down here to the bottom right, and you see this little lock down here? If I click on it, you see now it's locked. Now watch what happens if I go in this viewport. It will not mess the scale up. Okay? So it kind of protects you from messing up what you've already created. Now, if for some reason this is not exactly centered how I want, all I got to do is click in here, come down here and just unlock this one, situate it how I want it, make sure it's still set 1:1, and then relock it back. And I want to go back to paper. Okay, so it's real quick to set up scales of multiple objects. Now, when I told you your title block will no longer be a model space, this is where you'll have to, and keyboard people, viewport is VP. VP. Okay, so you don't have to go up and find the icon. It's VP spacebar. Now, to put your title block on top of paper space, there's two ways to do it. How many people are used to the control functions on the keyboard? How many people actually use that, like Control C for copy? Like copy the clipboard when you're doing stuff on the internet, trying to copy from the internet to Word, that kind of stuff. All right, you're going to want to write these down. Because for me, this is easier. Control C on the keyboard is copy. Control V on the keyboard is paste. And Control X on the keyboard is cut. So Control C is copy, Control V is paste, Control X is cut. Why do I use those? Sometimes it's just a little bit easier. Okay? And I'll show you why. I don't know if I have a title block anywhere on here or not. Okay, here's a title block. This is a title block. Most of you already have a template probably set up with your title block in it. Watch this. If I select this, and this is why, you remember in Principles of CAD, I was very adamant about starting your title block at 0, 0. I always say start your title block at 0, 0, right? This is why. I hit Control-C on the keyboard after I've selected it. So I hold Control down, hit C. I come back to my other drawing. Now, how do I get back to my other drawing? Y'all remember how I told y'all to quickly switch back? Here's another one you might want to write down. Control-Tab. Control-Tab. And I'll show you how that works. I'm going to hold Control down with my thumb, press Tab with my pointer finger, and look what it did. It brought me back to my other drawing. So if you watch your screen, watch how quickly I can go back and forth. Okay? So Control-Tab is a nice little function to remember because now that you're getting into multiple drawings, or to these more advanced drawings, you will have more drawings open at one time than just a single one you've been having. Okay? Now, I'm on top of paper space. Let me make sure, because I don't want this title block to go into model space. So I look down here. I am on paper. I'm on layout 1. I hit Control V. Here it comes. You see my cursor is locked in at the bottom left-hand corner of the title block. The only reason it is locked in like that is because when this title block was drawn, it was started at 0, 0. So now when I want to place it, I'm going to hit 0, 0 again. Bam, there it is. Alright, as you can see, this is way too big, so let's set it at a different scale. I'm going to unlock it. Set it 1 to 2. Lock it back. Now, so once your title block is in here, you can just bring in your viewports, set them in there however you need to. Okay? Now, this is the reason why most of the times when we have multiple drawings, we use paper space. Alright, we set this one right here is at 1 to 2, and this one's at, let's throw up a different scale. Let's put something crazy. Alright, this one's at 1 to 2, and this one's at 6 inches equals a foot. That's two way different scales, right? What will I do to plot this? And this is why I purposely use these crazy scales, because you're like, holy mackerel, which one do I use as the plot? Right? Did I have to scale up my title block? I didn't scale my title block up, did I? So, when you go to plot, what do you notice my scale is set to? 1 to 1. This is why we use paper space, because no matter what you set those viewport scales to, everything on top of paper space is still 1 to 1. Okay? Even though that viewport is set to 6 inches equals a foot and 1 and 2, on top of Paperspace, everything is still 1-to-1. What you drew in model space is still 1-to-1, but the viewport, by scaling it, all it did was this. This is what you're doing when you're taking that viewport and scaling it. Say you got a picture frame. Everybody do your fingers picture frame. Okay? Bring it close to you. What can you see? See a lot, can't you? Now bring it further away from you, and what fits in the picture frame now? Very little. That's what you're doing with a viewport. When you're saying, hey, scale it, all it's doing is taking that viewport that you created and just zooming it in or pulling it out. That's all it's doing. So you're just moving your picture frame either closer to the object or further away. So you're moving the viewport closer or farther away. So your viewport is not getting any bigger. Your object's really not getting any bigger or smaller. You're moving the viewport in or out. So everything's still 1-to-1. So when you print this, you print 1-to-1. You don't have to worry about what is the scale factor of this. You print 1-to-1. If I did a preview, this title block's wrong. It's messed up. So, but if this title block was correct, it was really 8.5 by 11. I can tell it's not 8.5 by 11. This would be a perfect draw. Okay. All right. Now what we need to talk about is how do you set up dimensions to work with Paperspace. All right, first things first. I'm going to model space. Yeah, I told you there's two ways when you're doing Paperspace that you can set up dimensions. I'm going to show you both ways, and you just choose which way you want to go when you're doing all these drawings. Okay? The first way is you come to your dimension style, you hit modify, you go through and set everything up. Bam, 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 just like you normally do. Blah, blah. Under fit, what do we put there in the last couple of drawings? An overall scale. We had to put the scale factor, right? One way to do this when you're doing Paperspace is leave this 1-to-1. So just leave 1 there. Set everything up. Okay? Let's say we set everything up. I'm leaving this 1-to-1. Okay? Set current close. You come on top of your Paperspace. You come on top of Paperspace, so you come to your layout 1, and you just start dimensioning your object. You're probably like, there's no way that's correct, right? Because what do we do with that? Didn't we scale that viewport? Did we scale it 1 to 2? Okay. Then we scale that 6 inch equals a foot. Well, let's test something. Let's go ahead and get into the object and actually pull a dimension and see if it matches what our dimension just pulled or what it's showing. So I'm going to come in here. Let's make sure these are both locked first. Yes, they are both locked. I hit escape to get rid of that. Let's come in here, and I'm going to pull a distance from there to there. What did it say it was in the y direction? It says 2.854 down here. What does it say right here? 2.854. Good start. We'll pull another distance. From here to here, it says it's 3.2955. What does it say right there? 3.2955. So you can see, even though these are in different scales, by me submitting dimension style up just 1 to 1 and dimensioning on top of paper space and not inside model but on top of paper space, all it's doing is saying, hey, AutoCAD's going, what is the real dimension out there in model space? When you click on here saying, what is the actual dimension of it? And it's putting it. Okay? So, very, very easy way to dimension with multiple scales. You don't have to know anything. You just set everything up 1 to 1, and bam, it works. But here's the downfall of that. What happens, and this happens all the time, what happens if I get down here and this object actually has to move? Because I'm putting something else in that place. What happens? You see the dimensions moved, the object moved, okay? Well, I want to get my object back inside this viewport, so I'm going to unlock it. Make sure I'm still set 6 inches, 6 inches equals a foot. I'm going to lock it back and get out. What happened? Dimensions didn't come with it, did it? That is a downfall of actually dimensioning on top of paper space. Because there's not too many times that I've actually drawn something in a model and it's staying in that exact same spot that I've drawn. I'll give you an example. And you might think I'm lying, but I can show you the file. After Katrina hit, I was one of the ones that worked on the Coast Coliseum in Biloxi. Okay? I was working for a structural civil engineer. We did all the structural redesign and all that kind of stuff. My file, in this one drawing, like you see here, how many tabs do you see? 3? Model, layout 1, layout 2. My file alone was 48 tabs. Okay? 48 on one drawing. So think about that. That's a lot of stuff inside model space, right? That was details, that was framing plans, that was foundation, it was a ton. Okay? So you thinking with that much information, most of the stuff in model space is not going to say exactly where I put it the first time. It's going to wind up getting moved somewhere. The overall project was over 100 pages long. Okay? So, if I would have dimensioned everything on top of paper space, what would have happened? They would have all got messed up, and I'm going to have to go in and do them all over. Simple projects like this, it's not a bad idea to do it on top of paper space, just because it's simple. There's not a whole lot of information going into it. But, if you had a big project, this is how I dimension. You come into model space. You do like you did before. You set up multiple dimension styles. Except, before you had to do all this, well, what is the measurement scale and all that, correct? You don't have to do that here. This is what you do. We said this one right here was 1 and 2, correct? All right, 1 and 2 is what? What's the 1 and 2 would be, is it 24 or is it a half? Let's see. See, 2 to 1. Yeah, 24. Okay, so 24 is my scale factor. I don't think that's right, but we'll go with it. I mean, okay. Once I set my first one, remember, anytime you got to create multiple dimension styles, create the first one exactly how it's supposed to be, set all your settings and all that, because once you hit new and it copies it, it'll already have everything set up. But let's say I already set all my standards up into this one. Now I'm going to hit new, copy of it, I'm going to call it a 6-inch. The only thing I got to come in here and change would be under the fit tab. I got to put its scale factor in there. So what would 6 inch equals a foot would be 2. I'm going to rename this one to 1 to 2. All right, I'm going to set this one current, close. Now let's go in here and dimension this. I think it's just 2. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to come in here, dimension it. All right, what I'm going to do real quick is change, because I want to show you they're both 2. I don't like that. I want to change this one to change it to something. All right, let's just change it to 3 inches. Well, it's 3 inches. Let's see, it's 3, 4. So let's go ahead and manipulate our, change this to 3 inches. Modify, change this to 4. Alright, so I dimensioned this one with the correct one. Now I'm going to come in here, change my dimension style to the one I want. And now I'm going to make Alright. Now looking at that, are these two text heights the same? No, they're not. But watch when we come out here. These text heights look the same. Yes. Because when you dimension out on model space, you still have to plan for that viewport being pushed in or out. So if you just set up all the dimension styles that you need at the scale factor that it's supposed to be at, and put those on the correct object, once you do the viewport, you do the scale on the viewport, everything will come out to look the same. Like I said, this way requires a little more work, just because you got to go up and set multiple scale factors, you got to multiple dimension styles, which then makes you have to figure out their scale factors and all that. But when you go to move these objects, what moves with them? The dimensions. Okay? Now, when you're doing paper space, not only do you have to set up different dimension styles for each scale factor, but you also have to do the same thing for your multi-leader style. Before, we only have to set up one multi-leader. With paper space, you will have to set up a multi-leader for every different scale factor. Okay? Now, same thing with text. If I wanted to put text in here, let's say I do a multi-line text. We said this one was 2, right? Scale factor. I'm sorry, scale factor 2. Somebody got a calculator? Since the scale factor is 2, do 2 times 1/8 or 2 times 0.125. Because 1 to 2 is basically, think of it like this. The ratio of 1 to 1 was the scale factor of 1, right? Ratio of 1 to 2, the scale factor would have to be 2. 1 to 3, the scale factor would have to be 3. If you did 2 to 1, what would be the scale factor? 0.5. Yep. Okay. Two times 0.125 is what? 1/4? So this should actually be set to 0.25. And let's say I need the same thing to be up here on this one. But what was the scale factor for this one? 4, because we did 3 inches equals a foot. So 4 times 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch, would be what? 0.5. Looks bigger, doesn't it? Looks way bigger. But watch when you come out here on top of layout. Do they look the same size? That's where you have to manipulate stuff. Now, I will give you this hint. If I got to put just single text like that on drawings, on multiple drawings, where do you think I do it at? I do it on top of paper space. If I got to do just little notes like that, just single multi-line text or something, I do it on top of paper space. Why? Because I didn't have to go through and figure all that text like we just did. So what I've actually would have done, I'd have just came up here, did me a multi-text, 0.125, which is 1/8. Justification, middle center, DF. And I'd have just copied this And look, that's it. I didn't have to figure anything. Because I did it on top of paper space. Because on top of paper space, what did we say the scale is? 1-to-1. So you do everything like you were drawing, just a standard 1-to-1 drawing. So let me ask you, to use is easier or harder than the way we did it before? It's a lot easier, isn't it? Because you're not having to scale objects. You're not having to figure how much do I need to scale it. You're not having to figure, well, when I set my dimension style, what should be my measurement scale? Okay? So, on the drawings you're going to do, or the drawing you're going to do for this, I'll leave it up to you which way you want to do your dimension. You can either do it on top of paper space, which you just got to set up one dimension style, 1-to-1, or you can do it in model space by setting up to whatever you need to set it up. Okay? Alright, now where does your title block go? Where do we put our title block when using paper space? Your title block no longer goes in the model, it goes on top of paper space. Okay? Where did your objects go? In model. Where can your dimensions go? Either or. Okay, so remember that. You need to probably make a note of that. Yes, you can make a template for your title block. Just when you create the template, create it in model space. Because you'll see why in about 2 more weeks when we get into blocks. And when we get into inserting stuff, not how I just showed you by Control-C, when we actually get into inserting objects from other drawings, everything has to go from model. So if you create your template, create the title block inside model, save it, and just go to it, Control-C, Control-V. Alright. One more thing I want to show you. Actually, there's a couple things. I told you there could be like 40 tabs instead of just layout 1 and layout 2. I'm going to show you how you can create those. And I'm going to show you how you can actually rename these tabs instead of layout 1 and layout 2. You can rename it to whatever you want. Okay? For instance, layout 1, if I right click on it and hit rename, type in whatever you want, and then you click on the screen. Right click on layout 2, rename. Okay? So you can rename them to whatever you want. Now, what if I wanted to create another? Let's say I wanted to create teacher. Right click, move or copy. Now, the key to this is, if you want to copy it, you got to check this right here. It says create a copy. All right? Once you check create a copy, then you have to click up here. Where do you want this to fall at? Where do you want this new copy tab to be? If you want it to be at the very end, which means if you wanted it over here next to student, you would click move to end. Okay, so I would click that and hit OK. See what it's called? Teacher 2. It just takes your name that you created and just puts a 2 behind it, or 3 or 4, however many tabs you've already copied. Alright? Now what if, watch, I'm going to take teacher 2. What do you notice about teacher and teacher 2? They're exactly the same. It copies your viewports, your images, everything it copies. So watch. Let's say on teacher 2, I want this one gone. Now I'm going to copy teacher 2, but I want it to be in front of student. I want it to be between teacher and student. So I'm going to click on student because whichever one you click on, it goes in front of. Okay, so whichever one you click on, it goes in front of. So watch what happens now. You see it went in between student and teacher, and now it's called teacher 2. And you can, yet again, you can rename these to whatever you want. So now notice if you come through here, there you are. Okay, there's all your tabs that you created. Next week, what I'll show you, I don't want to show you right now, because you're not going to have to create multiple tabs for this first drawing. But I want to show you how you can plot. No matter if you have 40 drawings, or 2, or 3, you can do one single plot. It will plot every single one of them without you having to go to each and every tab. Okay? And we'll do that next week. Alright, so for your drawing, what you're going to do, on page 26-36, on page 26-36 in your book, you're going to draw that object that you see. You are going to dimension that object exactly how you see. Alright, then on 26-37 there, you see the top left object? The one that shows basically the full object? That one, because you're going to basically make it look just like this almost, except your title block's going to be a little different. The top left image on 26-37, you're going to want to, I want to see the dimensions now. The one on the right, top right, I want to see the 3 dimensions that are associated with that. What I mean, if you look over to the 26-36 at the bottom left, you see radius of 1.03, diameter 1.5, and the linear dimension of 1.03. You'll show all 3 of those dimensions over that top right. In that bottom one, you will show basically what you will show is up here on the drawing, you will show the 3 dimensions that are basically straight across from each other. And what I'm talking about is the top left of the drawing is radius of 0.28, 0.56, and 2.16. Okay? So you will show those. Now how are you going to do that? Well, in this one you got 2 ways. One, you can either just set your dimension style to 1:1 and do everything on top of page space. Or, this is one more thing I need to show you. I'm going to come up here and create me a couple of layers. That may be. Let's see. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. Alright. Why would I have, because you remember I created these dimensions inside of model, right? And I had to do 2 separate dimension styles to create. Why would I put my 2 dimensions, 2 separate dimensions on different dimensions, or different layers? I'll show you why. Let's say I want to do a blow up of this one. Okay? If I did a blow up of this, what am I going to have to do? I actually have to go create another dimension style on it, because now I got a whole different scale. So I come over here, write me a dimension style. This is going to be 12 inches. We're going to set this one to actually, this would actually become 1. And I'm going to pull another dimension. Put it right there. Why? Because watch. Oh, you can't see it. Alright, now you can see it. This is why you basically have to have different layers. So you might have a dimension 1, a dimension 2, and a dimension 3 layer. Because what do you see in this drawing right here? You see the dimension that's supposed to be in this one, don't you? So what I have to do is I have to click on this, or get in here, come over here to my layers drop down, find the dimension I want to turn off, and look, you see this one right here? It says freeze or thaw in current viewport. If I click that, what did you notice just happened? It disappeared there, but it did not disappear here, right? So now in this one, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to come in here and take this layer and freeze in the current viewport. So now you see that none of these dimensions are showing up here, and this dimension is not showing up here. Okay? So it's basically what you're going to have to do on this drawing right here. I would advise you to not try to do it the easy way, which is just setting it up 1-to-1. Okay? I would actually say to go ahead and just, I mean, you can do the 1-to-1, but I would try it the other way too, just so you can do it one time. That way you can kind of see how it works. Because in another week or so, I'm going to show you an even easier way to do dimension. Okay? There's a whole different setup you can do in dimensioning that makes it a lot easier when you have to do this kind of stuff right here. Alright? So, I will put, basically what I'll do, I've already had this drawn, so I'll put an example of it online so that you can see it and see exactly what's supposed to go where. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put on there too, what each box, the scale it should be. Because I'm going to tell you a certain scale that it has to be. Okay? Because all three of them's got to be a different scale. But for at least now, until I get it out of the paper or out of D2L, go ahead and at least start drawing this object. And then that way you can at least have that start. Everybody feel kind of good with it? Feel okay? Yeah.
How would you center it on your space?
You don't.
You just kind of
Centering, I'll go ahead and tell you, once you get in these bigger drawings, it does not happen. It's more, you fit things where it needs to be fit. You can tell when we did those last two drawings, there was no center in those. You have to fit it where it goes. Now, when you're doing single drawings, yes, we do center them. But when you're doing this kind of stuff, you don't. Okay? And to answer your question, if you were doing a paper space drawing, and it was a single object, you would do the same thing the way you did before. Offset these lines because you can move this from the actual object to the line. Alright, everybody, any more questions? Alright, this will be due, because it's very simple, it's a little bitty project, this will be due Monday. This is due Monday. Oh my God, please tell me that you didn't like that real quick.